Welcome back to the Pit Lane Pals Formula One podcast. This episode, we are joined by a very special guest coming in from the world of F2. If you would like to introduce yourself, Jake.
Yeah, so I'm Jake Puttock. My role in the team is mechanic. I'm also on the pit stops, do rear jack. I get to travel the world around with the F2 circus.
Sweet. I do want to ask you a little bit about how you got into the industry, how you worked your way to eventually be an F2 mechanic, because I have known nothing about the qualifications of like the engineering world. So I'm just really curious how you got into that position in the first place.
Yeah, so for me, I mean, I'm 21, so I'm still fairly young. I started off, left school, always been a massive fan of motorsport. And it was like, I don't really know what to do, so I'll go to college and study motorsport. So I studied at Silverstone. There's a college they've got there. Went there for a year, and this is kind of just before COVID hit. So literally I was, sending emails out, contacting people, not even just F2, just kind of even like club level teams, just saying, is there a position available, an apprenticeship, stuff like that. I knew the team anyway. So literally I was like, just pinged him an email, hi, my name is Jake. No experience at all. Worked at a supermarket at the time. I'd like to do some work experience. Then COVID hit, which was awful for everyone. And then literally just out of the blue one day, I've always been a massive FIFA fan, so grinding, playing foot champs, as we all do, stressing over the weekend. And literally I was just in the middle of a game and got a phone call from one of the bosses. So I against it, I was like, I'm winning this game. But this might be more important. Literally just picked up the phone. Eventually left the game. Onto the phone, he was like, oh, hi, do you want to get yourself a COVID test and come in and do 2 days work experience? So I was like, yeah, sweet, I'll do that. So got myself a COVID test. I think it was that day. So she said to my parents, I weren't driving at the time. I was like, oh, we need to go to the local town, go and get a COVID test. So I did that. Thankfully came back negative. And went into 2 days work experience. Asked for to go in the following week. So I was like, yeah, sure. So I went in the following week, and it weren't even necessarily doing tons of stuff. It's just kind of doing little bits of the car here and there, just it's hard going as a new person to go straight into, the really challenging stuff.
Of course.
So literally did that, got asked for him to go back, did another 2 days, and it was... did another week, and then, do you want to come to Bahrain and do the test? So I was like,
wow. That's gotta be crazy. That's gotta be a crazy, crazy feeling. When you get the...
time as well, I was 17.
Oh, yeah.
So I was like, and for me, I've never been out of the country, apart from like a school trip. I went to Germany, but apart from that, it's actually go away with a test with these guys you don't know. So you just thrown completely in the deep end. Just went from there and eventually got a full-time job.
Sweet.
That's amazing.
What does, when you get told you're going to this Bahrain test, what did that look like? Like, what was that experience like? What were the first things you're seeing, and like, what did you all take in?
I think the first thing challenging for me was, first of all, going to an airport. Never done that before. So it was me, we all traveled together, so it's not like I was by myself. But it was me kind of scurrying around in the airport, no idea what was going on. I've actually got a boarding pass on the first time that I went. No. So I had to panic the passport control, like, I have no idea.
Oh my God.
But anyway, we eventually got, it's like a 6.5 hour flight to Bahrain. So we got to Bahrain, touchdown. By the time we got there, it was like 8:30, 9. So we went straight to the hotel, got some food, whatever. And it was at the track the next day. So me turning up, I'm like, I got my phone out. Oh, it's the main building. Oh, it's all still new. And straight into like setups. You set up all the garage. But at that point, I was like, well, I don't know what I'm supposed to do. Like, I've done this before. So it was kind of like me walking around confused, like, oh, do you need help? Oh, what do you need to do? Do we go do this? Okay, that's cool. just trying to figure out basically what my job role was, because I hadn't really been told what I was supposed to be doing. I just kind of got told you'll come to Bahrain. So it was like, oh, okay. So when we got there, we had 2 days of like setup. He then set up the cars, and like the following day, you have to sort all your tyres and everything out as well. And then the 3 days were just ruthless. Basically, I was just out of the back washing wheels, basically. It was the most I could do, really. I mean, you can't go from nothing straight to trying to do pit stops and stuff like that. So
yeah,
it was a good experience. And it was a good eye opener for like going back a couple weeks later to like the first round. But yeah, challenging was a good word to describe it.
Wow. So you're now the rear jack, right?
Yeah.
In the pit stops. So how did that introduce? How was that like? How did they come up to you and be like, "Hey, do you want to do the rear jack?" Or was it like a kind of a step to
Basically, yeah. I mean, I've done the first year. So it's my 4th year currently. So I did my first year, and then for the test, so we always have like the Bahrain test at the start of the year.
Mm-hmm.
So during that test, it was, oh, do you want to have a crack at doing it? It was initially front jack. So I was like, yeah, like sure, whatever. So and we do our like practice pit stops, same as like F1 when some people push it in and then you do a practice pit stop. So I did a couple of front jack. That was cool. That was fine. But I'm a fairly stocky big person, so it's kind of made more sense being on the rear jack and doing that. Yes, did it throughout the test. That was good. It was nerve-wracking the first time doing a live pit stop. It was, you can only do so many, but you can't prepare for when it's actually, happening in real life. And then just kind of went from there, and, that's now my job role.
When you're doing these pit stops now that you've done them obviously a fair amount of times and you have a bit more experience since your first time, does it become like muscle memory, or is it still every time you go up there kind of like this making sure you do everything intricately, or does it become natural?
Yes, it's one of those things where before you go into the pit lane, especially kind of the situation we've got now with Gabby, the pressure is on, and you sat there before the race starts and you're thinking, I can't mess this up, and you do think about that a lot. But the moment the car's coming towards you, it's just all muscle memory. It's just, I don't think about anything. Like the first time I did a pit stop, I had like an Apple Watch, and I think my heart rate was like 150 something beats. Like it was in like borderline heart.
Yeah.
Now it's like 90, like mid 90s maybe. Like it's weird. It's just, you get used to it, but it's literally just all muscle memory.
Yeah.
But like if you see in the like our pit boxes, it's all like taped out and everything. But if you look where the rear jack is, there's normally like a little marker. So our mine's, was it 2 steps from like the rear left, like triangle? That's my marker, and I know it's like 2 and a bit steps to the car. But again, all that can change where if the car doesn't come in, on the marks, something like that. If it goes too deep, you obviously got to do an extra stretch. If it comes short, it's literally just muscle memory and adjust to it when it goes wrong.
Yeah. Okay. And sometimes obviously the pit lane can get very, very busy, right? So I'm thinking if I were to be a rear jack and it gets really, really busy, I mean, there's cars flying by all of a sudden out of the pit stops and something's going on. How's that actually going through in person?
I think because you're so focused on, right, our car's coming in, we're going to do a really fast pit stop, and there's nothing else I think about. And for us, it's, so I don't know if you see it on telly or not, but we have like little like boxes on wheels with all like our pit stop guns in and stuff like that. But we have like a camera, like a GoPro mount on it. So we have like a group chat, like a WhatsApp group chat with all like our pit stops, even practice pit stops, all videos, all time. We get data back from it. It's pretty cool when we look back on it. But you only kind of look back and see it then, how close things are. So where was it? I think it was Silverstone, maybe? The dams, because dams are normally behind us in the pit, like the pit lane. And I think it was Correa. He came out of the box and it was like an unsafe release. But my God, was it close to taking me out. But I didn't realise I was so focused in what was happening. So I can only look back that night and it was like, oh, Jesus.
Yeah. But you don't even notice it in the moment.
Exactly, yeah. It's just one of those things where other people notice. And someone said to me at a time, but I was like, I didn't get hit. I'm cool. I'm fine. But you only look back and realize it's like, oh shit.
Yeah. Kind of, I guess, moving into like now in general, what does a race weekend look like for you and your team, and how busy does it get? And on top of that, sharing it with Formula One, like on the, you're sharing the entire pit lane and the paddock with Formula One for the weekend. So how is that?
It can change a little bit from like Europe to like Asia stuff. That's the initial on the first day. So we'll get there, we'll set up our like garage, our all in whatever, if it's from the truck, we'll like boarding and stuff like that. So that's normally on like the Wednesday. The Thursday, that'll be set up for the cars, so there'll be a lot of like flat patch type thing, like set up scales, set up wheels. So that's when you'll get your setup information from the engineers. That's also when you get your tyres that day as well. So normally for that, I take care of like the tyre side of things. Come to Friday, we have our free practice in the morning. I think it's a 45-minute session, fairly chilled. It kind of depends on the feedback from the driver. Normally it's fairly, you go out, you scrub, do 1 lap scrub set, which will be like your feature race pit stop set or start set. But that's the set you're using the feature race. And then you'll run the rest of the session on 1 tyre. Again, depending on how fussy the driver can be. Obviously, if they come in and they're saying, it's awful, it can be a bit manic with setup changes, stuff like that. But yeah, we'll still do that session in the morning, go back, basically straight on to like set up scales, set the car up for qualifying. Qualifying is normally tail the end of the afternoon, depends where we are in the world. If we're, Saudi, it's at night times, it's normally like 7-8 o'clock. But if it's somewhere in Europe, it's normally like 2-3, something like that. And then into Saturday, sprint races normally kind of early afternoon, mid-afternoon time. Yeah, so it's not too bad, provided it's a clean race. Provided there's no shunts.
Yeah.
And that'll be come back. Obviously, wait for part ferme to be over. Everything gets released. For me, I go through and scrape all the tyres. Essentially, get the information from that side of things first, and then the boys will literally have gearboxes off, go through, check the gearbox, bellows in, and then boxes back on, run up, and then go straight into setup. And then Sunday, race first thing in the morning, and then pack up and get out. Next one.
Just now, with you mentioned the crash. Obviously, in Baku there was a pretty big incident. Can you run us through how it's like in the pit box? Because obviously in F1 you kind of see the mechanics react. But what's it like when the driver crashed, and exactly in Baku it was a massive crash? How does that look?
Because our cars are very distinctive with them being yellow, we knew initially it was one of ours. And obviously we've all got our headsets on as well, so we've all got our radios on. But that initial first thing, it's just, oh my God. It's just thinking about, the amount of damage it's done, what's happened with the championship, especially with how tight it is this year. The chance of getting more points, that's gone. But for us, for example, from Baku, all of our stuff's gone straight to Qatar. That car couldn't go back to Qatar. It couldn't go there because we would not have the time to turn it around. That car was destroyed. Like the tub as like the cockpit type thing, that was written off, done. Literally the whole thing was destroyed. So that had to be arranged to fly back to the UK separately. So, that car's now at our workshop. It's kind of just been finished. It's basically in the last stages, but it's basically fully prepped now. But yeah, the amount that all had to be sorted, and it's not one of those things where you can just go and click your fingers and it's back in the UK. It's a lot of effort because you got to remember with F1, I think the next round was Singapore for F1, and nothing's flying back to the UK. So even when we got back from Azerbaijan, we had to wait like 2 weeks before the car turned back up. And packing it up, it was basically just throw it in a box. The whole thing's written off. You can't do anything about it. But there's a lot of things. But I think the initial thing is just, oh my God, all the work we put into this is done. The whole weekend up to that point, it was for that race, and it's just a whole waste of time. But fortunately, Gabby got some points. So it's not all doom and gloom.
Speaking, of course, of I'm gonna hope I pronounce his last name right. Bortoletto, is that how you would say it?
Yeah, Gabby. Okay. We call him Dory out of Finding Nemo, just because he's kind of bit.
Wait, what is the context behind Dory?
He's Gabby is. I mean, I love him. He's brilliant. I think, is he 19, 20? He's about that age. He's young.
Yeah.
So he's kind of similar age to me anyway. But you call him Dory just based on the fact he's just kind of like, just keep swimming, just keep swimming. You tell him to do something.
That's funny.
Yeah, he's brilliant.
Just wanted to make sure I was saying his name right. But of course, I wanted to ask you about from somebody who's a part of his team and the big news that came out this weekend that he's going to be driving for Sauber. What has that news been like from, what you've heard from his party, from the team, for you personally, and obviously your relationship with him and the team?
It's weird because obviously we kind of know little bits before kind of the public eye knows. Personally, I didn't know it had been signed, like it was done and dusted. I knew it was a possibility. But yeah, I mean, as soon as I found out, I dropped a message straight on Instagram. I was like, oh, mate, congratulations, you deserve it. But yeah, I mean, to be honest, it doesn't affect the way we run as a team. At the end of the day, we're there to win the championship. We're in a position where we can do, and that news doesn't change anything as far as we're concerned. We're, same position regardless of what's happening next year. We've got our goals. Gabby's got his goals. We want to win the championship. But on a human side of things, I think it's awesome. Like, as someone like I said, I used to do sim racing. I was racing Gabby before he even signed with us. So it's kind of cool, knowing F1 driver. It's, again, I'm a fan at heart as well, so it is pretty cool. But yeah, I mean, that's the thing with Gabby. He's just a normal person. He's so down to earth and, like I said, just normal. But no, it's cool, yeah.
That's really cool. The drivers are coming from youth programs, right? Like McLaren Driver Academy and like Renault. You were already in the team when Joe was in the team as well, right?
Yes.
Is there a big difference to these driver academies? So like, obviously it's different teams, right? But like, do you get to see how they handle their drivers differently, or are they kind of just supported in the background?
Obviously, there's a lot that goes into being part of academy. I know, for example, I don't really know how it works with McLaren, obviously, because we've only had Gabby. Obviously, we had Jack, Joe, and, obviously they have their side where they go and do their F1 tests. They go and do their, they have their fitness program and trainers and stuff through the academy. But to be honest, I'd say it's fairly similar in terms of like the weekend involvement through the academy. Obviously, Gabby's had more of that just focused attention, where it's only him in the paddock. It's not like Alpine. We've had, even just this year, you've got Cush, you've got Martins. I think they're the only two Alpine Academy, aren't they?
As far as I'm aware.
You go back a couple of years and you had, Joe, Piastri, Coldwell. Having three drivers is hard to go in there and focus on one. So fortunately, Gabby's hasn't had that. I think with the McLaren Junior program as well, it's still not early days, but it's not as in terms of number-wise as in terms of how many drivers they've got. It's not like Alpine, we've got, 2 or 3 people in the same category. You've literally got Gabby. I think, is it Stenthorn in F3? It was him and Dunn. I think they're both McLaren. And then like a couple of players all driving a karting kid. So it's still early days, but I think from what I've seen, it's been better.
No, it's got to be interesting also to see somebody that on a personal level then become an F1 driver, and they have all these lights and attention on them all of a sudden. Everyone knows their name now.
Yeah.
I wonder with, your personal experience, some of these drivers, again, Doohan, who you've worked with, and Gabby, as you call him, obviously getting promoted, and how, like, do you see them as drivers who you think are going to, come in and make a big scene right away, as far, from what you see in behind the scenes, and how successful do you think they can be out the gate, I guess is my question.
I think looking back at when Joe was in F2, he did not have the same effect as what Jack or Gabby have had. Jack and Gabby both, don't get me wrong, Joe's a good driver. But in terms of raw talent, I think Jack and Gabby are both, well-deserved in that F1 seat. The performances they've put on in F2, even Joe, he put some good performances on, but unfortunately he was driving against Piastri, you know. And that's what I mean. I think Gabby is like a Piastri, same as Jack. You know, you have these kids coming to F1 that, you know, just take the world on fire. It's a bit like how Behrman's been doing this, and Antonelli. I think this year has been really good for F2 because you've had so many young drivers come through who have gone, especially like Behrman, who's done a couple. I know he had a bit of a dodgy one in Brazil, but going back to Saudi when he just got thrown into the car and was it like a P7 finish, or it was definitely top 10.
P6, yeah.
But I think it's shone the light on F2 is, you know, these kids are ready for F1. But again, go back to like a personal level type thing. It's weird because before this F1 stuff with Gabby, and even a little bit with Jack, not as much. But Gabby, like, he'll message me on Instagram and we'll just be talking about, he's into his iRacing, so we'll talk about iRacing and cars and stuff like that. It's weird. It's kind of, like I said, it's just they're just normal people. You know, people think, oh, they're these like gods because they drive a car around. But at the end of the day, they're just people who've got money who like driving cars.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously people, myself included, before being involved with the industry, like I said, they are like these gods who, you know, they're amazing, but again, they're just people. They're just normal people. But no, it is cool, you know, saying I know all F1 drivers. Yeah, it's just not too bad. It's a little perk of the job.
Sure.
So now that you've mentioned the people and human aspect of this, what's like the big difference of having worked with different drivers? Because you've also worked with Joe. Is there like a big difference between Gabby and Joe? Like, how does the personality come into play?
I think you've got to look into obviously where they're from. So Joe being, you know, from Asia, same as like Marino was from Asia. Obviously, I'm not saying this about everyone that comes from, you know, that part of the world. They're a bit more like tame and, you know, timid and a bit shy, borderlines at times. Where you've got, you know, Gabby, who's a bit flamboyant, and, you know, it's an age thing as well. So I don't know how old Joe was when he was with us, but Gabby's joined us when he was like 19. And you got to remember, it's just a 19-year-old kid. You know, it's not, like I said, they're not this god because they drive a car. At the end of the day, they're still a young lad. But no, it's obviously it changes from driver to driver, but they've all got the same, you know, same goal. They still want to win, and at the end of the day, that kind of shines through beyond anything else.
It's really interesting to hear you again talk about that personal level, because I think people like to boost up the drama of F1 and these drivers. And again, obviously shows like Drive to Survive come around and they boost up their personalities and their, you know, all these crazy behind the scenes stuff that isn't just driving. Have you, I guess, seen on a personal level some of them become or complain, I guess, something about like the stuff that people talk about that's really not related to the driving and more their personal lives, and how that all gets around and is boosted up by the media and the fan base?
It's like you said, with F1, there is not a single moment that isn't televised. You know, if there's a little bust up in the paddock, everyone knows about it. You know, it's that. It's going to be, always will be, especially with, you know, the last, say, 10 years where it's changed with like Liberty Media and all that stuff. Obviously, there's little things that have happened in F2 which isn't televised, but to be honest, it's not one of those things where it's serious. You know, at the end of the day, we're all here for one reason, and it's, you know, it's silly stuff like that. It kind of doesn't need to get involved. But to be honest, it's one of those things. At the end of the day, we all just want to go racing, so it's. Yeah, there's not from the top of my head, there's nothing stupid that I can see, really. I mean, like I said, it's different with F1. There's not a single moment drivers can't have to themselves.
Yeah.
Obviously, drivers come back and will moan if they've had a crap race or if, you know, got smashed into or stuff like that. But again, we're all there for racing and stuff like that happens. So,
since the news around Gabby have just been coming out lately, and there's going to be also next season of Drive to Survive. Can you also like kind of talk about if there have been some cameras around, or maybe now there might be more cameras around since he's going to be signing, and that will be covered in the next series?
To be honest, I don't know. From obviously there's like an F2 thing called like Chasing the Dream, which is a bit like a Drive to Survive thing, but not anywhere near as televised. But to be honest, I think it's one of those things where because when we're back at the workshop, the drivers don't really come in. You know, I don't know whereabouts, Gabby or Kush normally reside, but they don't come into the workshop. So I can imagine when we're in Qatar, there'll be a lot of cameras around and, kind of focusing on Gabby, because there will be now, because he's not currently, but as of next year, he'll be an F1 driver.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that's the thing as well, people, as soon as you sign that deal, he's an F1 driver, but it's like, yeah, but you've still got this season, that's the most important thing at the moment, especially for us, is, we want to win the championship, so.
When the championship is as close as it is right now, what is the tension like in the team, and what is that pressure kind of like on everybody to perform at the best level? Because I know it's a 5-point gap right now between first and second, I believe.
Again, it's one of those things I don't like looking into it. I don't want to know I just want to know, right, we've done everything we can this weekend. We've got more points than them. That's the main thing.
Yeah, for sure.
To be honest, in terms of a pressure side, yeah, there's always a bit more pressure on everything. But at the end of the day, we're in that position because of how well we do our job and to the level that we execute it. So realistically, we're not going to change anything because what we're doing is clearly right. So like I said, yeah, there's pressure on, but there's pressure on the other guys as well. So yeah, it's just one of those things. We just need to carry on doing what we're doing.
Okay. So also coming into the next races now, as the season's coming to a close, is there anything that's going to be changing, or any more attitude toward the situation, or is just going to be plain sailing the same thing?
Plain sailing the same thing. At the end of the day, it's the saying, don't fix if it's not broken.
Yeah.
Why? Do you know what I mean? At the end of the day, we've had a really good season, and why should we? Obviously, like I said, there'll be pressure on, but realistically, it's pointless to change what we're doing if what we're doing is working. Yeah, just full sense.
Yeah. I want to definitely know about some of your favorite on-track stories as well as some of your favorite off-track stories, just since you've had this position and things you've seen on and off the track during and not during race weekends.
Favorite on-track? Oh. So a cool one for off-track was not last year, was it the year before? Basically when it was like Joe's first season F1, when it was like the red and white Sauber type thing.
Yep.
In Bahrain. So this is after the race weekend, because it was it Bahrain to Saudi, I think. So we had a day off in Bahrain. So we had a day off in Bahrain, and then flew straight to Saudi. And so we all were like, there's a kart track at the track in Bahrain. So we're like, oh, this will go, So a few, I went, another one of the mechanics went, one of Joe's old engineer went as well, and one of the team bosses went. So we had our drivers go with us as well. So that was it Marino? Yes, we had Marino Sato with us. Jack Doohan was with us. Mick Doohan, his dad, was with us as well. But they kind of put the word out, and we're like, yeah, let's get a few coming. Let's get a few drivers coming. So it ended up being us, Jack Doohan, Marino Sato, Oscar Piastri, Joe came with us, Ollie Coldwell was there. Who else was there? There was someone else there, but it was literally a load of F2, F1 drivers. So for me, coming from a karting world, me loving karting, it's like the pressure's on here. So we were all karting, and yeah, we did a little race, and I remember I smashed into Joe proper whiplash level, head backwards. It was a good shot. But it was cool. Like I said, a couple of years prior, I was just a normal kid, love watching on the weekends, wanted to get into it, and then next minute I'm in Bahrain wheel to wheel with Piastri and Joe, and it's like, oh. And the cool thing was, so we finished the session, and there was a couple, 3 Brits that just normal fans were there for the race weekend, and they were flying back, I think, later that day, and they came over and they're like, oh my god, is that Piastri, is that Joe? And we're like, yeah. And they're like, that's what we're just fans. Like, this is awesome. It's like you've just been on track with like people you've been watching on the race weekend.
Yeah.
Like it is like, and we've done it. We normally go karting like Abu Dhabi. So I've already said to Gabby, like, mate, come karting, I'm gonna smash into you. Like, put you in the barrier.
That's so sick.
But again, like, it's weird little things like that. And again, going back to like they're human. Like, you know, at the end of the day, they're just normal people. But it's always in your mind. It's like, you know, this is really cool. You know,
Yeah.
Especially, like I said, because coming from, you get people who've been in motorsport ages who they're a bit, you know, grumpy and a bit, you know, this is just, you know, normal to them. But for me, I'm still like, oh, it's sick.
Yeah.
You know, do you know what I mean? It's weird to kind of describe, but yeah, no, that was certainly up there. That was really cool.
That's cool.
Favorite on track moment, I think the win for Gabby this year in Monza. That's up there. That's got to be. Started last and won, and I can't describe the feeling. I'm probably sure you probably saw on the table on the pit wall leaning over, like hugging. You know, things are getting thrown about everywhere. It's just insane. I think. Yeah, it's like that. My first year, so it was Joe and we had Dragovic at the time. We got like a 1-2 in Monaco. It's like, it was just the sprint race, but even that, it's like that's the first for the team and the only 1-2 we've had, and that was just awesome. You know, being on the grid for the podium ceremony. Yeah, it was up there. It was really cool. I think definitely Gabby's win this year in Monza. That was just on another level.
You guys
just
got to
insane.
party hard after something like that, huh? Like, there's got to be some pretty crazy team celebrations after.
Yeah, I mean, you got to everyone's walking around like a. Do you know like a Cheshire cat? If you know that saying, like a cat that's like,
oh yeah,
smiling about like all we were doing is basically what we're doing now is just like smart. Everyone's joking about, and it's normally like that anyway. But everyone's like going around hugging each other. You know,
that's it.
It's on another level. It's just I can't describe the feeling. It's just when you win a race, it is just on another level.
Yeah,
but yeah, definitely this year that was special.
Yeah. Before we move on, I just got to know, how did the karting race end up? Like, what were the positions?
It landed up, I think it was 6th. You got to remember as well, I'm fairly big, so going against people that are like, gee, I was never going to win. We finished the karting race and Jack broke the lap record, and we were like, there's no way, because he cleared the lap record by like 2 seconds.
Oh.
And we're like, no. So it turned out that in qualifying, so the turn 1, right, it's kind of hard to do off this. So you kind of come up and then you loop back on yourself, and there's like a little infield bit. Jack had been doing turn 1 and then just cut in the infield bit. Just cheating. Like, we're all like, whole like 2 and a bit seconds. It's like, mate, what have you done? Like, same when we went in Abu Dhabi. Like, there's track limits, and then there's whatever Jack's view of track limits was. Like, if you've watched IndyCar, like at COTA, like the second to last corner when they just do like basically like a George Russell, just like it was basically he was just doing that. But literally we were just like, mate, what are you doing? Like, how are you that fast? And then we watched him in the race. Okay, you're just cutting the track. Okay,
got it. Yeah. Is there when you are karting with those guys though? Is there a moment like, damn, they are quick? Because like obviously I know they're not trying probably as hard as they could, but still like their natural ability has to still be like hard to keep up.
Yeah, it is. You kind of realize, you know, why they are at the level what they are. Again, there's also a part where it's like, I know I'm not faster than you, so I'm just going to smash into you and hopefully you can't get past me.
Yeah.
You know, you do realise, especially like that day in Bahrain when you had that field of drivers, it was like, okay, I understand why they're at this level. And even just like joking about a karting race, you know, it means nothing to them, but yeah, they're there for a reason.
Yeah. So now that we have like kind of this break between races, And you've talked about how the car went back to the factory fully smashed up. What does it look like working in the factory? Like, what are some jobs you have to do? What are some things you have to fix? And even now, compared to having a broken car there and maybe not having a broken car there, what are things you do between the races?
Normally, say the car wasn't the crash in Baku, everything went to Qatar. This would have kind of been our like off-season period a little bit. So we'd have just been doing, making the workshop a bit nicer, improving things on our like truck and that side of things when we go to Europe for next year. So even just down to like, changing the little things like the board and the layout, just little improvements we can do from now until basically for next year. That doesn't require us being with the cars. But yeah, I mean, to be honest, like for me, obviously we all get our holiday per year and we save it basically up for this period. So I've taken a few weeks here and there, spend my time going and do a bit of karting myself, have a couple of weeks away from work. But now that, say, the car, did come back, the first thing initially was basically sort anything salvageable, strip the tub down, that got sent back to the Lara. And then obviously we got ordered a load new bits. So basically anything do you see carbon-wise on the car, that falls down to me. So when we get brand new bits from the Lara, you'll get the carbon bits, but it's weird 'cause obviously everything goes into like a mold. A bit like it's like Lego. It gets put into a mold, gets made, comes out. The way the molds are, everything kind of comes a bit coarse. It's a bit rough on the hand and a bit bumpy here and there. So basically, I'll like sand it down like a bit of water and sand it so it's nice and smooth, and then polish it up nice. Because at the end of the day, you don't want it bumpy and coarse because that's then causing drag. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's kind of, you want it slippery basically. You want it to slip through the air nice and least drag possible. So everything carbon wise. It takes like 2 weeks to do one car's worth of carbon, especially the floors as well. You can imagine how big they are.
Yeah.
It's literally like I've like going tomorrow. I'm in work tomorrow, but I've got to finish off like the rear floor section, but then everything else is done. And it's then literally, whilst the boys are cracking on, getting the tub built up, I'll be on to like basically building the floors up, do the wings, stuff like that. And I'll just kind of help them wherever I can, really. But yeah, my main role is basically just crack on everything carbon.
Because I was going to ask you a bit about like when it comes to the factory stuff, if everyone's just, make yourself useful, if there's specific parts. So that's interesting to hear that, mostly focusing on the carbon even, which is something that I would have never thought would have been, a specific role. Obviously, we are a kind of F1 casual just chatting podcast. And so I do want to ask you a bit about your personal favorite drivers and teams. And if you like grew up cheering for somebody specific and any of that.
I'm Max Verstappen through and through. I'm Red Bull.
Interesting. Okay.
I've always, even basically as soon as Max came into F1, like back in the Toro Rosso days, I always like just, Max the one. And then it kind of went to like the early days of Red Bull, Red Bull be quick every now and again, get to like Mexico or Monaco or Austria, there's a chance, Ricardo or Verstappen could be on pole. And obviously then won his first world championship, which is just, I was watching the race in Abu Dhabi because we'd finished and because we were testing, we don't have to pack up. So we were literally watching if I did like the back straight, so not the first straight, the second one where it kind of like bends around where like the other pit laners, there's like a load of big grandstands, so we're like a box, like watching it from there. So we were watching like the last lap and it was just insane. I'm Max Red Bull through and through. Interesting.
We are both coincidentally McLaren fans, so we've been kind of rooting for Lando most of the year. Not to no, but I do think Max won the championship now. In all fairness, that drive in Brazil was insane.
Something else.
Was it? I almost wore my McLaren hoodie. I almost wore my McLaren hoodie on this episode today. That's really funny. No, Max is in a league of his own still this year. Even if it's not quite where the Red Bull wasn't where it was last year, he's been insane this year.
I was going to say, I think this year, especially you look at kind of Checo, You know, look at last year. He'd get third or fourth, you know, occasionally be on the podium. The odd start of the year when he won in Baku, and from that it was like Max was just dominant throughout the rest of the year.
Yeah.
I think this year it does show how much the Red Bull isn't on pace. Like, I think go back to like 2021, if you put that Lewis Hamilton in the McLaren now, easy world championship. I don't think Norris or Piastri are at the level that Max is.
No, definitely not.
Like,
No, that's true. That's true.
I think the race is to watch at Singapore. Yes, the McLaren's got brilliant pace, but there's multiple times where Norris nearly crashed. No pressure. Like, that's not a world champion.
I think something I noticed throughout this season is I've always been a big Norris supporter and thought that he was a world championship caliber driver for a long time. And I think what I've learned through this year is that he's very quick. He is very quick. He's obviously a good qualifier and has pace. But when there's pressure on, like there has been this entirety of the year to catch up to Max, I think he gets in his head, and I don't think he can compete when the pressure's on quite to the level he needs to be. That's been interesting to see.
Especially at starts as well. But I do have to ask this, since you're a Verstappen fan and F2 and F1 is just like kind of moving circus together. You've probably seen him, right? And how is that? Like, were there any interactions? Have you seen him? Do you have a selfie? Anything you can tell us about that?
Don't get me wrong, I've met Dra. I've never had the chance to meet Max. If I did, I think I'd just go into full fanboy mode. Obviously, I've seen him around, but I don't know if there's so many people around drivers, it's kind of hard to you know, even just go and talk to them. I've had a picture with Leclerc, Alonso, Sainz. That was in Monaco. That was pretty cool.
Wow.
But to be honest, it's one of those things where there's so many people around, and you got to remember we're there ourselves, you know, to be professional. We're doing our own thing. So you got to look at it from like the teams. Say you're a team manager and you've got a young lad walking around, you know, with a Max Verstappen hat on, trying to get. It doesn't really look professional. So we've got to be professional ourselves, but there's always that little bit of you which is, you know, wants to go and take a picture. And
like, that's my favorite driver right there.
Yeah, even I always get bits from drivers we've got now. So even in my room now, I've got like signed hats. I've got drivers from gloves from like Jack, Gabby,
actually,
like boots. Like I do stuff like that. Like, it's weird. It's just one of those things. Let me grab some. Hold on.
Okay,
yeah. I really want to see some.
I was gonna ask
Alpine Jack in the back.
Oh yeah, got the Alpine shirt back there.
Oh, it's a shirt.
Shoes.
Hold on, let me get some cool bits.
That's so sick.
Yeah,
it's honestly so sick.
Yeah, I have like my rocks that somebody's given me in my room from race weekends.
This is a cool one.
Oh, that's
my goodness,
sweet.
I've got like 2 of these. Obviously, that was the 3rd place. I think one of these was Austria. I can't remember where the other one was from. That was from Jack. So that's pretty cool. Just like a little podium bottle. I haven't got everything. There's quite a bit of stuff, but this is the Senna balaclavas from this year, from Imola.
Whoa.
This is a race. That was pretty cool. Literally, it was only at Imola.
That is sick.
I said to him, I was like, yeah, mate, can I have the balaclava? He's like, yeah. Like, he was like, I'll take it home and wash it for you first, and I'll bring it back and give it to you. So I was like,
so cute.
Cheers, mate. Here's a pair of Gabby's boots.
That's so sick.
Sweet.
Yeah, it's not too bad as it is. I mean, yeah, it's cool just to have stuff like that. I mean, especially with him in F1 now, it's cool to have that type of stuff. So it's a pair of Gabby's boots. There's a visor from Jack. She kind of signed it for me.
Wow.
So everyone knows me. So, you know, my nickname in the team is Put. So was it 2 Put everything Jack? Yeah, so that's pretty cool.
That's sick.
I do have one of Cush's one. They've been signed for me. And then some of Jack's. Actually, where are the other gloves? These are some of Gabby's, but these aren't cool ones. Hold on.
They're all cool to me. This is.
I was about to say it's absolutely sick.
The gloves from Jack, so they're like Invicta. You know, we've got a watch on there as well.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah, so they're pretty cool. I mean, not too
wow.
bad.
Yeah.
Wow.
I've used Karting a couple of times.
Yeah.
That was about to be my second question. Like, do you wear the ball karting?
Yeah.
Because like having the watch on the wrist, that's pretty sick.
I've used Gabby's boots a couple of times to just test him because why not?
Might as well.
Yeah, so it's stuff like that. I mean, like I said, I can go through and get tons of stuff that I've got, but it's just, yeah, it's little cool things like that. I mean, I think at the end of the day, look, you know, they're things I'll keep forever. And look back, say 20 years time, it'll be, I remember when Gabby gave me them. Oh, he's a world champion now. Or
Yeah.
do you know, it makes it cool. It's a cool perk of the job, and I think, you know, you have to do stuff like that just to remember it. But it is cool.
It's got one of those things too where you gotta pinch yourself a little bit and like, am I dreaming? Like, this is my life.
Again, it's one of those things where it's like, go back, say 4 or 5 years before I was doing this, and you said, oh, you're basically like, you know, you messaged him on Instagram, oh, I've given you tons of stuff, oh, you kind of see him this, just like, it's just insane.
Yeah.
It really is. But again, it's one of those things where you kind of, when you're there, you have to be a bit professional and you have to basically put up a front. But at times it is like, oh, Gabby, do you reckon you can sign this, or do you reckon you can do this for me? And they always say yes. I mean, at the end of the day, like I said, we're all human, and I think it's cool for them as well. That even they've got team members who are a bit, you know, starstruck by,
especially the F2 guys
really cool.
who are just kind of, you know, getting up and becoming more recognizable, and like it's kind of probably a moment for them where like, yeah, I'm making it too, you know.
I do have a question. Inside the garage. So have you worked with mechanics that have gotten promoted to F1? And if so, what does that process kind of look like? Like, are they watched, or is that more something where they have to apply for the job? How does that work?
I've personally not worked with anyone who's gone to F1, but I know, you know, a decent handful of people who are in F1 now, who I knew who were in F2 at the time. So there's like a couple in Mercedes, a couple of Williams. I think there's one at Sauber. But it's one of those things where basically it'd be like going for a job now. Say you work for a job and you leave that job, you've got on your CV, oh, I did this. And normally, the moment you're doing something like F2, WEC, you know, that level, it's kind of fairly easy to move around from, you know, category to category, because it is at that level, if you know what I mean. So it's kind of, I don't know if it's like, it'd be like F1 with drivers. I don't know if they're like kind of poached, and I think because there's so many people in the sport, it's hard to kind of do that. But it is more of just oh, I've done this on my CV type thing. So you do obviously have to apply for it and go through that route, but it doesn't, obviously it's not what you know, it's who you know. You know, it's one of those things where, I mean, even the last 4 years, so it took me like a year to get into motorsport, but even those last 4 years, I've had a handful of job, like people asking if I want a job at a certain place. Nothing from F1, but again, it's literally just as soon as you get into that paddock and start talking to people, it makes everything a lot easier.
Yeah, I know you mentioned in the article I originally read about you that you're more interested in like endurance racing long term, and that you would be interested in F1. So I guess just overall, what is your long-term goal? Do you kind of want to do F1 if possible, try to make that the first goal and then go to endurance racing? Like, what is your goal from this point?
I think personally for me, like I said in the article, I think F1 is something I'd like to do, to say that I've done it. You know, you have been to that pinnacle. And to be honest, if I did do it, I mean, I might really like it, I don't know. But to me, there's a lot of race weekends away. And you got to remember, I'm still fairly young and I still get a bit homesick, you know. I miss my missus and, you know, stuff like that. And it's kind of, I think it is very much a single person's game. It's very hard being away. But no, to be honest, I wanted to probably do F1 for like a year or two, maybe. But like I said, WEC, I mean, I've always loved doing endurance racing. I mean, even when I was on my sim, go back to when I was saying I was doing stuff with Gabby, that was all like endurance WEC type stuff, like LMP2 racing. And I think it's just a lot cooler category of racing. So not being funny, if you say we have a spin out on one of our feature races for F2, lose 10 seconds, you're done. You know, that's the race for you over, basically. Whereas WEC, I saw in Bahrain the other day with one of the Toyotas that won the race, that spun out earlier on in the race.
Yeah.
And still won. It doesn't matter. But yeah, I think it is, and especially with the way their calendar works, is only like 6 or 7 races. Obviously, their endurance is one of them being 24. But again, I think I'd much rather do a less amount of races and then have them as endurances. I think it's just a bit more intriguing as a person as well. A lot more grueling and hard to do. But yeah, I think WEC is the ultimate goal for me.
Okay. And if F1, a Red Bull?
Yeah, only Red Bull.
If Mercedes was to approach you right now and be like, here's a job, would you be like, hold out for a second for the Red Bull opportunity? Not to cut any ties for you here, but
I think I'd then have to become a number one Lewis Hamilton. Actually, no, not Lewis Hamilton. Kimi Antonelli and George Russell fan. To be honest, it's one of those things where I think it's kind of hard to say. I mean, like with work now, I haven't gone there because I was a fan of Joe. I just went there because it was a job opportunity. So I think it'd be more tailored down to what the job role, the hours, the money, especially the money. But it's one of those things where it's cool. It would be cool, say, if I went to Red Bull because I have got that, kind of connection where they might, I want them to win, stuff like that. It would be cool, but yeah, I mean, it kind of depends what the situation is at the time.
For sure. Since you got the platform here for a second, if you had any predictions or hot takes for the rest of the season or just the future of Formula One in any capacity, any hot takes that you really want to get out there, what would it be?
I'm going to say that Norris will never be a world champion.
Oh my goodness.
I feel like if there's a world champion at McLaren, it'll be Piastri.
Okay.
Perez didn't deserve to have the Red Bull seat. I think that there is a lot better talent, especially you look at this season where you've had Pinto come in, who, again, wasn't really the best in F2 and has come in and has shone up. But even Albon, I think has shone up Albon. It's kind of, I think everyone thought, Albon's a really good driver, And I'm not saying he's awful, but I think he's been over-credited because he's been paired up with Latifi and Sargent, who, again, they were F2 and GP2, but that step to F1 I think is too much. So yeah, I think realistically, I think Colapinto or Lawson should be in the Red Bull seat. I'm saying more Lawson. I think especially with the recent Lawson efforts.
I have to ask.
I fully agree.
Because we have this debate here all the time, me and him. And I'm more of a Yuki guy. He's more of a Lawson guy. Why not Yuki Tsunoda?
Realistically, how long has Tsunoda been in F1?
5 years, maybe now.
Lawson's just turned up and has been outperforming him.
Fair.
Exactly.
But if Yuki gets back on top again, he did.
Yeah, but I wouldn't even say there's been a time consistently.
Yeah.
I mean, realistically, he's a good driver, but Lawson's come in with no seat time in the current car and is outperforming him.
True.
I couldn't agree more.
Realistically, even was it De Vries who jumped in the AlphaTauri?
Yeah, De Vries.
Was he Williams?
De Vries jumped to Williams and then got the seat AlphaTauri through that.
Okay, ignore that. I couldn't remember if it was an RB or not, but I feel bad for Ricciardo because Ricciardo is a brilliant driver, and obviously he has lost the seat. But Yuki was dominating him all the time. Mm-hmm. Lawson's come in with he hadn't driven the car this year, the current car, and was straight on pace and out qualifying him and out beating him. So realistically, why would you put Tsunoda into the car, the Red Bull, if Lawson's come in with basically no experience and beating him?
Fair. Okay.
I mean,
point. Yeah, it's still early. It's still early days, but it is a fair point. I've been holding on to my hope for Yuki for like years. I've been wanting for him to get an opportunity for so long, but yeah. I guess to wrap up some of this, what recommendations would you give to people who want to get into the motorsport industry on any level, whether it's your position specifically or just in general, getting into the world of motorsport?
I think the main thing which people misunderstand is the fact that if you want to go out there and get a job somewhere or get work experience, make the effort to just phone up or go to the place and speak to someone, because the amount of people who send emails across, hi, my name's whatever, I want to do some work experience. How many do you think a team gets? It's going to be a lot. A team manager hasn't got the time to sit there and go through all these emails, and they're going to give you all work experience, because really there's a lot more things they have to do. But I know it's funny, if you phone up or ask them, you put them on the spot. You need an answer. And the same like what I did. I mean, and I've had this conversation with my boss, the amount of people that email for work experience, they don't get anything because they're a lot busier. And they're not going to sit down and go through their emails and purposely out. Where if you phone up or go there and put them on the spot, meet them in person, you need an answer. You're not just going to sit there pending, waiting. So I think the main thing is just be out there, and I know it was for me. It was pretty scary at the time because you don't know anyone, but just put yourself out there and throw yourself in the deep end basically and see what happens.
For sure. Any final comments? Anything you'd like to just plug? Any of your social medias? Anything out there? Any final comments?
To be honest, I use Instagram. It's just Jake Puttock. There's a lot of car and stuff on there. It'll be more car related now because, like I said, I've stopped my car and I'm into my cars a bit more now. So basically just my Instagram. That'll be it.
Perfect. All right. Well, thank you so much again for your time. It was great talking to you. A little insight into the world of F2. Anyone who's listening, make sure to follow us on Instagram, Spotify, TikTok, YouTube, everywhere. And that is it. Thank you so much and goodbye.